What I would do is surround myself with, um, be a small fish in a big pond. So surround yourself with the big fish, as it were. Mix around people who are further ahead than you, and that makes you feel uncomfortable.
I fully agree on that part. As you said, like if you're surrounded by those people, they inspire you.
I always like this acronym of two C's: the customer and collaboration. So we often get siloed working, but when you and getting together for a meeting is good, but it has to have a purpose. And the two biggest purposes you can have, one is around meeting your customers.
There are so many aspects of the business, and normally we go in silos and we start working on something. As you mentioned, you need a holistic view to make a successful transition. What one bias do you see still exists in energy industry?
Yeah, it's back to that jumping to solution. We as experts, we want to prove ourselves, show our results quickly, and the bias with that can result in duplication of work, decisions being made too quickly, and just taking a beat. Back to that 1-3-1 problem-solving method. Watch the one problem, 3 options, and the one solution. Just gives you that breathing room to think.
This is the Oil and Gas Breaking Bias show, where we are going to invite industry leaders to talk about their journeys and also technologies of tomorrow, in an effort to break some of the biases that might have formed around this energy industry. Hello everyone, I hope you're happy and healthy. I'm Ananja and you are listening to the Oil and Gas Breaking Bias show. This show is about leaders who have made it big in this energy industry while breaking some of the biases around them. And today I'm excited because we will be joined by John Hetherington, who is a technology strategist, an international speaker, and self-confessed geek and nerd. He is the founder of We Deliver Your Vision, where he helps companies to use AI for better and faster decision-making. John has over 25 years of experience of delivering mega projects in UK and Canada, while working for many energy companies and also organizations like Deloitte and Ernst & Young. John combines excellent technical expertise with global perspective. He is currently based out of Calgary, but travels around the world to speak and consult. So with that, welcome, John. John, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Anand. Yeah, literally traveling around the world. Just flew in from Salt Lake City last night back to Calgary. So yeah, excited to be here.
It's very hard to catch you. So thanks for taking your time for joining me today. And before this recording, we were talking about how there are different aspects of business. We immediately jumps into technical discussion, but you have lots of knowledge based on financial aspect of this business, the technology aspect of the business. And today we are looking to talk about those aspects which are mostly ignored when we deal with these energy companies upfront. So without any further delay, can you please tell us about yourself and also your professional side, how you're helping this energy business to grow?
For sure. So where do I begin? So firstly, I'm born in the UK, grew up in London, UK, which was an amazing experience. Got to work with lots of international companies. And then my wife actually had cancer. She's a cancer survivor, knock on wood. So she actually had cancer back in 2000. That propelled us to say, life's too short, we need to make a move. And that's when we moved over to Canada. I was working with Ernst & Young at the time and really enjoyed working in Toronto, then Calgary. That's where I got my energy and oil and gas experience starting in 2005, and I've been there ever since. So 20 years now. That's how we as We Deliver Your Vision, really help companies work through the metrics, the measures, and how do you manage those results? Because we can talk about this more, but dashboards really are the middle management of data. They if anything, they take you away from your decision making. So we can dive into that for sure.
Definitely. And how was your transition from UK to Canada?
Yeah, good question. It was tough. I was excited about it. I always had in the back of my mind since I was a young lad. I was, like you said, I was a nerd. I was a geek. I loved technical things like technical Lego, and got my first home computer back in the 80s. It was a Commodore 64 for anyone who knows those. Then, after graduating electrical engineering, I was like, okay, I really would like to move abroad. But when you're younger, you don't really think too much about it, whether it's possible. But then after joining Ernst & Young in the UK, they had offices globally. And then, as I said, when my wife survived cancer, we were like, okay, we need to do something different. We can't just settle for life in the UK, although it's amazing that we know there's more. So after a lot of work, it takes effort. You have to have that vision, that goal. That's why I called my company We Deliver Your Vision, because having that vision really drives you forward. And I always remember the night before leaving for Canada, I was excited leading up to that. And then the night before, I was physically sick. I was like, this is a big change. I'm going to land in a new country and don't know anyone, hadn't been there before, and away we go. But it was the best move we ever made. And yeah, it's tough, but you get so much growth and opportunity from doing things like that.
I can imagine. And also, we can say sometimes you have to make yourself uncomfortable for bigger goal, bigger vision.
Yeah, and that's easy to say, difficult to do. And we often, myself included, often fall into habits. You fall into routine, but the best growth comes from when you start something new, make yourself uncomfortable. And that's what launched my speaking career. Is I said, okay, as I'm an introvert, I'm a nerd introvert. I'm not big I'm not good in big crowds, but I really enjoy having done speaking, having done presentations. So that gets me through the anxiety and nervousness going into speaking. And over the years, practice it more and more and more. And I always remember the result of doing it is enjoyable, but going into speaking is often nerve-wracking.
I can imagine. And it doesn't matter how many times you have spoken before. It's always a nerve-breaking whenever you have that opportunity. Going back, like as you said, you're an engineer, but when I was looking into your profile, you have started your career as a financial analyst.
Yeah, I actually started as a developer, coder. So I've always been in IT, but then worked in financial services companies. So I was doing analysis on financial data. So that's where that comes in. So in the UK, big financial services industry. And that's when I really learned about how best to use data in the right way, because I always remember my first AI project. This is basic AI because it's back in the 2000s. And I was working on a black box project to calculate life insurance quotes. So you go online, put in your details and get an instant life insurance quote, which now is easy. It happens all the time. But back in the 2000s, this was groundbreaking stuff. But the financial results were showing the revenue was increasing. However, the customer satisfaction was going down. And this was a really hard lesson for me to understand. Well, I thought the whole goal was revenue. We were actually getting more sales. But the company I was working for was known as the Friendly Society. They were built on customer relationships, engagement, and the automatic quotes were actually taking away that interaction with the agents and the customer service people. So the customers didn't like it. They were saying, this is just too clinical, it's too cold. So we ended up canceling the project. And that was like, I did not understand that at the time, but I had a real good lessons learned coming out of it, going, right, okay, it's not just about the data of revenue. It's about that holistic vision of the goal of the company, which in this case was that customer service. And that was what was most important.
That's amazing. There are so many aspects of the business, and normally we go in silos and we start working on something. And if you ignore something else, then as you mentioned, you need a holistic view to make a successful transition.
Yes. Yeah. And you touched on a really good point, actually, and it's worth mentioning because I've just got back from a workshop in Salt Lake City, and there are two C's. I always like this acronym of two C's, the customer and collaboration. So we often get siloed working, but when and getting together for a meeting is good, but it has to have a purpose. And the two biggest purposes you can have, one is around meeting your customers, and these could be your internal customers or stakeholders. Because if you meet your customer, you understand their real pain points, you understand their challenges, you get to hear firsthand what they're going through. And then then you apply the second C, which breaks down silos, which is collaboration. So you're bringing your team, you have the customer in the room, and that collaboration really starts some real-time brainstorming, working through the problems, coming up with a better result. So going into your workshops with customer and collaboration as front and center is the best way to speed up decision-making, work through those, break down those silos.
Fully agree. And voice of customer is important. And sometimes I have seen many companies going other way around. They work on their product and they work on their solution. And it's very late, and then they introduce into the market to get customer feedback. But if it could have been done before, then you could have saved a lot of time in those alterations.
Yes. There's a great book by Austin Kleon called Show Your Work. And that was groundbreaker for me as well, because growing up, it was like the whole education system is very much you're tested on your end result, your exam or your case study or coursework or whatever you deliver. You don't show your work along the way. You don't half do the exam. You might do preps, but you don't do you're graded on your final result.
Oh, we are tuned. I think this is a good way to put it. Like as you said, in our childhood, all the exams, we have done it like that, correct?
Yep.
So everything about the
Exactly.
end result.
Yeah. So, but then what's really good in business is as I say, perfect is the enemy of good and enemy of delivery, because it just slows you down. You're waiting for that perfect product or perfect delivery. But what I've learned is even just sharing, here's a draft, here's a working copy. It's not perfect, but it's good. It's certainly good enough. The quality is good enough to put in front of customers. Makes you feel really uncomfortable. And so now I work with a lot of companies just to get an early working product, document, report, project, whatever it is. Let's get something out there early to test, get feedback, and then iterate. A project is never done until the success of the client, the customers, is measured, and that's after the project. So getting that iteration, that feedback is really important.
Just going back to your journey, your move from UK to Canada, you already talked about how nervous you were at that time. But have you faced any of the biases about yourself, or maybe some stereotyping around you during that journey?
For sure. And a couple of, I mean, since I was an employee, coder, developer back in my early career, and then management consultant with Ernst & Young, Deloitte, and then moved to the energy industry and then became self-employed and now have my own business. So I have that journey. My next journey is empire builder, by the way, where I build companies. That's in the future. But right now as a business owner, I've had to really understand clarity, and you can fix every problem. You can fix any problem, but you can't fix every problem. So you really need clarity. And this applies to corporate, my clients, my team, is focus on the one problem, because we often get into meetings with an idea and agenda, and it starts to go into different directions. There's lots of other problems coming in. So I always boil it back to the bias of people jump to action. We're experts. We want to show results. And I was with a client just a couple of days ago, actually working through this, and the meeting started going different directions. And it was all around how do we improve the on-time delivery? But then we started talking about inventory, talking about sales, talking about the people, process and training, cybersecurity. Everything was coming into the conversation. So the bias for jumping to solution is always come back to those ask the questions. And the best way to do that is focus on one problem, then come up with 3 options to solve it, and then come up with one recommendation. So 1, 3, 1. One problem, 3 options, and 1 recommendation. And that just cuts through that decision making, gets you focused on the customer, what they need, and then gets rid of that bias of jumping to solution too quickly and sometimes wasting time.
How was your transition from financial background? As you said, like in UK, you were more working with most of the financial companies, but when you moved to Calgary, it is a hub of oil and gas companies. So your skills help you? I think question goes both ways. Does it help, or it didn't help much?
Yeah, so it's a couple of things there. So what I see and what I do with my teams, and then also my business, but also my clients, is help them through the transition of change and the adaptability. So at the moment, there's so many acquisitions. There's so many integrations of companies, buying, selling of companies in the oil and gas industry. And what I found coming from the UK to Canada is I had to integrate with a new society, new country, new company, new culture, ways of doing things. It wasn't dramatically different from the UK, but it was enough different for me to learn, particularly around the sense of humor. I love North American humor, but the UK humors tend to be very dry. It's a bit more cutting, a bit more sarcastic. And coming to North America, some of that didn't go down so well when I was bringing across some of that humor. So I had to learn
I
the
like
new ways of...
UK humor. I have some of my friends, they can find humor in anything.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be quite challenging sometimes if you're not used to it, because it sounds personal. It's really not. It's just gentle ribbing. Anyway, so that had to adjust to that. I love the North America. I mean, Canada has a great culture. I love the American dream, as in you can be anything you want. And I love the way that Canada's adopted that to a point. It's not quite as ambitious, but it's more ambitious than the UK, where you stay in your lane. You only do what you're expected of you. I found it a bit restrictive, but coming to North America was a big culture shift for me. So to your question around what did I have to change? It's around that adaptability to, again, not jumping to the answer, just learning to spend some time understanding the situation, then saying, okay, what works? And then looking at how you're performing. How are you working? What's going well? What's not going well? And then how can I do better tomorrow? And just focusing on that every time. And that's something I do with my clients and my business and my team.
I'm understanding you're able to transfer your skills that you have acquired before, and it doesn't matter which kind of industry you're operating. but those skills are transferable to make it.
Yeah, so the skills around technology development, the analysis, the metrics, the measures, leadership is very transferable. What I would say is less transferable is our appetite for change. So everyone has a different appetite for change duration. Some people react to change very quickly, very easily. Some people take more time. And it also depends on the change as well. So if we're running a marathon, that's obviously a change which takes months of preparation. Whereas buying a new car is a very quick transition because you're excited about the end result. Moving house is obviously a difficult transition country. So when we're in business and we're having to adopt to a new process, we do a lot of work with automating processes, streamlining processes based on the metrics and the measures. And we often see how some teams don't react well to it. And that's where we come in to help them through it. And there was one company working with, and they joined the company for the office. They were given an office when they joined, and that's why they joined the company. So when we had to work with this company around some cost reduction, it meant they have to get rid of their office. They were going to co-working space, their breakout rooms, but the offices were going away. And that was a real challenge for some people because they joined because of the offices, and we had to work that through with them, say, look, this is the future. We will help you through it. However, that's a change we're going to have to work through together to get you to this end result, which is ultimately the financial strength of the company.
And how do you see adoption of digital strategy by energy companies?
The adoption of digital strategy? Yeah. So again, it depends on the company. So we were chatting on the pre-show before this around whether it's country or company. And
yes.
I do find
I like that discussion. It's a country or company.
Exactly. So having worked in the UK, Europe, and then Canada, North America, and the US, it really does depend on the company, not the country. Sure, there's cultural changes in terms of how people react to change and new technology, but some companies are very good at adopting new technology and the digital strategy. Others are less so. Industry has an effect on that as well. Heavily regulated industries, like anything to do with government, financial services, healthcare, energy, oil and gas. There's a lot of regulation that can slow things down a little bit, but it doesn't have to be a blocker. It doesn't have to be a constraint because there's still lots we can do. Just working with a oil and gas client the other day around how do we introduce a new calibration measurement system. And there's a lot of regulation around calibration. There's a lot of reporting, regulatory reporting around that. So we just did a local POC, weren't sharing any of the data, but just working through that. But we got great feedback from launching the calibration system in a controlled environment, which we could then use to improve the system while we were getting all the regulatory approvals done. So we actually spun up two streams of work, the regulatory approvals and then just these early POCs, get the data and the systems in front of people, test it out while the regulatory approvals were going on. And then that comes together at the end of the project. So by the time the regulatory approvals are done, we have a really good product because we've tested it before it's rolled out to the customers. It's tested, it's proven, and we know how it works.
And just one thing, we already talk about how this digital strategy works. Is a top-down approach, like if it's coming from CEO and then adoption is faster? Like, what's your view of companies on day-to-day basis? What is the best way of enhancing adoption by energy industry or oil and gas?
So this is a really interesting topic, and I see this all over the place. And again, partly why I set up We Deliver Your Vision, because the best companies, as we know, the Googles, the big company, the Teslas, the out there, they have a very clear vision of goal of what they want to achieve. And then it's very clearly linked to everything they do, all the way down from senior management down to the people on the shop floor. And what I see a lot and it's not just oil and gas, although that's where I work mostly, but a lot of companies, they have a vision goal at the top, but it's often then left to the middle management, senior management to then apply that and do it through their own thing. And that results in a lot of siloed individual working. So they achieve results, but it's not inherently tied to the end vision goals of the company. And that's where I think dashboards are to blame. I love dashboards, but what I prefer is scorecards. I like scorecard leadership because you're tying the goals of your company and department together and then measuring the metrics and managing the metrics to achieve that. And this is tough for a lot of teams, but because a lot of people don't like to measure what they're doing because it holds you accountable. You're suddenly on the hook for doing these things. So back to the point around the strategy at the top, the best way to do that is tie metrics to it. And then for the metrics, and OKRs, objectives, key results, play part of this. But the results, the metrics is absolutely key to tying it back to the overall goal of the company.
Thanks. And everybody should be connected with that metrics. Like if a senior leadership and the people on the ground, if they have two different metrics, things are not going to work.
It's interesting how many teams keep going, even though the metrics are different, because they're still achieving their local goals. And it takes courage and ambition to say, and like I said, some risk to say, let's align this. And it also depends on your team. It depends on where you're working as well. Sometimes we're constrained within a local environment, team, whatever department to not change things. But it doesn't mean you can't investigate it. It doesn't mean you can't be curious, ask questions. And I do encourage that a lot is, okay, let's just ask why. Let's just understand the reasoning behind that. Again, back to that bias around jumping to solution. Let's ask why, especially when it comes to the metrics around production reporting, volume reporting, production accounting, all based on metrics. And that needs to tie to the overall company goals and it really does boil down to three of grow revenue, reduce cost, eliminate risk. Those are the three things: revenue, cost, risk. If you're not delivering to one of those three, then you're not tied to those company goals.
Makes sense. And this makes perfect sense. Going back to your journey, if we have to relive your journey, I know it's a very interesting journey you had and we were discussing before, but if you're given a chance to relive your journey, what changes you might make?
Yes. Great question. So it's, I would have moved countries sooner. I wish I'd moved personally for us, my wife. It was the best opportunity we had and it really helped us. I wish I'd invested into Bitcoin back in 2009 because it's now several.
Like everybody else.
Exactly. So, I mean, I wish I'd done that. I actually do invest in Bitcoin. I think it's a fascinating, not so much for as a currency because it is a store of value, but I think it's just if you start to do research on Bitcoin, again, before you get into anything like this, do your research, understand what you're buying into. But I love the concept of Bitcoin, what it was designed to do and how it's set up. It's incredibly clever and it opens up your whole, it taught me a lot about economics and the financial industry when I started getting into that. But the other thing I would do is surround myself with, be a small fish in a big pond. So surround yourself with the big fish, as it were, mix around people who are further ahead than you. And that makes you feel uncomfortable. Absolutely. Back to your point at the beginning, because the more you're with people who are doing better than you, further ahead than you, that drives you, gives you a vision, a goal to move up. So I have business coaches. I'm currently being coached by Dan Martell, an entrepreneur out of Canada. And I've had invested in coaches, tens of thousands in coaches over the years. And that puts me in a really uncomfortable space every week, being accountable to my coach to say, what have you done? Why haven't you done the things you said you would do? And what are you doing to drive the business and serve your clients better? So even if you can't afford a coach, just on YouTube, go and watch those higher performers, people who are further ahead in your industry, because then you're surrounding yourself with that mentality of achievement and the next stage. And that's wish I'd done that sooner.
I fully agree on that part. As you said, like if you're surrounded by those people, they inspire you. And that's what we are doing here, correct? Like talking about stories like you, like sharing stories like you. So we can inspire people who are looking to make it big in this industry and to do something different. Yes. But also I have seen sometimes we go in the victim mode. Okay, this guy has done and I could have done the same thing.
Yeah.
So it depends. Again, it goes back to individual choice. You can be inspired, or you can be victim, or just doing nothing.
Just to touch on that, really. So I call it compare-itis. You're comparing yourself to other people, and then getting depressed and sad about the fact that, well, they're further ahead. I can't achieve that, and everyone goes through it, including myself. I do that sometimes as well. But what I've learned is don't compare yourself to where they are, because they've spent years getting to that point they are. There's no point saying, hey, how do I jump to that level 8 on the scale of 10 when I'm at a level 1 or 2? Because they've gone through the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the best thing you can do is say, okay, why are they at that level 8? What steps have they taken? And take the next one to move towards that. So in the oil and gas industry, it could be if it's acquiring a business, or it's automating a process. Don't look at the end-to-end automation. Look at, okay, is there one step we can automate? And that's where we start with our clients, is just what's the one process or stage you can automate first? Get that dialed in, then start automating the rest of the process. But don't start automating the whole process end-to-end.
I agree. And because normally, as you said, like when you see some person, we see the final end result, but we don't see the
Yes.
journey that person has
Yeah.
went through. So again, it's coming back to what you just said before. Either we are doing any project or maybe we're shaping our own life or career. We have
Mm.
to see one step at a time, and the end result will come out, but you have to go through the same or similar process. The person who has achieved success, he or she also went through the same process
Yep.
that we are not aware of.
Yes, exactly. It's in all industries. You talk about when a rock band launches their first album, you've got your whole life to write your first album, and then you have usually 18 months to write your second album. But it's all those years of touring preparation that gets you the success. And they talk about how your overnight success was earned from the previous 10 years of hard work.
Makes sense. Just we are talking about biases and the successes. What one bias do you see still exist in energy industry?
Yeah, we touched on this earlier. Actually, again, it's back to that jumping to solution. We as experts, we want to prove ourselves, show show our results quickly, and the bias with that can result in duplication of work, decisions being made too quickly, and just taking a beat. Back to that 1-3-1 problem solving method. Watch the one problem, three options, and the one solution. Just gives you that breathing room to think and work through the problem before coming up with a good solution. And this doesn't have to take long. I'm not talking about spending weeks on it. I'm talking about it could be minutes, but it has to be that pause to not jump to solution too quickly.
Great, and that brings us to our last section of this podcast. It's about knowing your guest, and so I'm going to ask a rapid fire question to John. And John, let's start. If you're ready,
Yes.
I can ask you first question? So
Yes,
okay,
let's go.
let's go. So let me start from your program manager journey. If your to-do list had a snooze button, how many times would you hit it?
Yeah, interesting. So I'm an early person, so I actually don't even use a snooze button on my alarm. So my thing is I would just get at it. I learned in my career, if you're stressed or something's keeping you up at night, it's because you're not doing something. My grandma told me this. So you just have to go at it. No matter how uncomfortable, just go at it. So I would
You
not
won't.
hit this button.
Interesting. Okay, I know you have worked very closely with AI projects. So my next question is related to AI. AI is coming for all our jobs.
Hmm.
What one task you would happily let robots take over?
Yeah, so I love this. So grocery shopping, and not just Google actually just announced this last week as well. Their agent, which can actually populate shopping carts for you, is one example of an AI agent. And I love the idea of a agent seeing my shopping history, my trends, doing my shopping on a regular basis, and then actually taking it that next step further around within limits, the checkout and delivery. So I don't have to go to Costco on a Saturday afternoon and fight through the crowd. So I would love it to do the automated shopping for
And
me.
that will save definitely 1 to 2 hours
Yeah,
in a week.
exactly. I'd still go to Costco for the samples, but I wouldn't do the shopping.
And that's good. Next question about yourself, your interest. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Lord of the Rings. Pick one, binge forever.
Hands down, Star Wars. I loved Star Wars in the 70s and 80s growing up, and that they were my movies. And I've still got, well, I don't know if you can see it in the background. I've got a Scout Walker in the background here as well. So I love Star Wars.
So I should not have asked that question. I should have guessed it.
Yeah.
The next one, as a program manager, what's your hidden superpower that saves the day?
Well, that's an interesting one. It's a superpower. It's also sometimes a bit of a curse, but I simplify complexity. I jump to here's the data, the facts very quickly, and that's actually taught me around the 1-3-1 model to make sure I answer the right questions to get to the right thing. But I don't know if it's my British no nonsense attitude, but I just get to that. Okay, folks, here's what we're going to do. Here's the plan of action. Let's get to that execution in the right measured way. So simplifying complexity for sure. Sometimes too much because my wife will accuse me of being a bit of a robot, and taking the emotion out of decisions. But it's worked pretty well in business.
But sometimes you need someone to stand up and say, guys, like enough discussions, let's do it.
Exactly.
Let's
Yes.
execute it. Yeah. Otherwise, we can go in that loop, forever loop, without any outcome.
Yeah, for sure.
I really enjoyed all this rapid fire round. With that, it brings us at the end of our really good discussion. But before we sign off, John, anything to add here?
No, I really enjoyed it. We covered a lot of ground. I love everything we covered. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm hoping the audience got some good value. And if they want to reach out to me, follow me on LinkedIn. I post every day on some insights around metrics for leadership, scorecards, how you can get better results using metrics, and also, of course, AI technology as well.
Definitely. That brings us to this conclusion. As John has mentioned, lots of information is available free of cost, and you can use that information to make you better. And that's an idea here. Connect with John, use his knowledge, and let's see how it can help to grow you as a person or as in your career. With that, I will sign it off for today. Keep listening. Oil and Gas Breaking by Show. Take care. Have a good day.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Anand.
Thank you, John. Take care.